We do have a small presentation we'll run you through. But before that, just to set context, NASSCOM 10,000 Startups is one of the initiatives of the National Association for Software Service Companies. We are a not-for-profit organization that was set up 30 years ago, to bring the whole IT industry together on one platform. Our primary goal is, how do we make the policies for the IT sector and be the bridge between the IT sector and the various governments, state, center, and international. We also work a lot on, talent, innovation, and creating market access for companies in India. Primarily, our members are IT companies. We cater to a very large sector of companies, whether it is IT services, BPM, what we call as GCCs, GICs now, Global In-House Centers, which now we call as GCCs as Global Competitive Centers. And it's a wide range of, companies that we cater to, including engineering, R&D, and all of that. 10,000 Startups initiative was set up 6.5 years ago, actually, to say, with the whole intention of saying, we do have a lot of entrepreneurs in this country, but how do we elevate that to the next level? How do we bring innovation to the forefront to this country? How do we add to the GDP of this country by creating new jobs, new talent, new technology? And we really believe that it's very, very essential to create that whole innovation pipeline, which the startups can bring into the ecosystem. And that's why there was so much focus on the whole ecosystem of building the whole startup ecosystem. We as NASSCOM, because we represent the tech association, we are, tech companies. So our focus is primarily on tech product companies. Right. So I will share my screen now and take you through the presentation, and, we'll present, and the team will, I want Rohit and Shivam as well to pitch in into this presentation to give you a very clear idea of how we work with different corporates, how do we work with, other associations, other accelerators, other incubators. And of course, our primary strength comes from the state and center government in enabling all the work that we do. The idea for us is about, the whole 10,000 startup ecosystem is about empowering the Indian startup ecosystem and how do we grow this to the next level. When we started this initiative in 2013, one of the things that we identified at that point of time was, nobody was giving space to young startups to work from. Office space, working from home was difficult, and no one would give a 2-member, 3-member team with an idea on hand space to work from. So our initial research showed that we needed to create co-working spaces at a subsidized rate where these young teams can come and work and grow their ideas. So one of the first things that we did at that point of time was, work with different state governments and put up co-working spaces, and which are highly subsidized by, the state government for the startups. Of course, we have a selection process where a startup with an idea, applies, and then we categorize it in terms of how innovative is the idea, how do they scale, how do we, what is the problem that they are solving, right? And then we bring them into our program. We incubate them at our warehouses. We call them warehouses, they are co-working spaces. We incubate them here for a period of 1 year. And then we give them different programs like mentoring, market access, which I will get into more details. But yes, a very critical juncture for us was setting up these warehouses and enabling that safe place for young startups to work from. So if you look at the broad spectrum of programs that we do, one is, of course, our whole incubation program, which is the physical incubation program at our warehouses. We run now 7 centers across the country, all of them funded by various state governments. Then we have the virtual program, which looks at, all the startups that apply for the program, but in different cities where we don't have our physical operations. We have a high representation from tier 2, tier 3 cities in our virtual program. Here again, they become part of a program for close to a year. Then we have a complete focus program on driving the whole women in tech entrepreneurship as well. And we have a community around that as well. Our biggest strength as NASSCOM is the whole market access program, where we connect to various governments, where we connect to different international markets. We bring in a lot of delegations which look at and learn from startups here and work with the startups here. Our biggest and most successful program is the NASSCOM Industry Partnership Program, which is NIPP. It represents India's largest industry-backed open innovation program. Before I get into more details on the whole open innovation program, this is just a snapshot of the entire impact that we've created over the last 6 years. Right? We've created and impacted more than 5,800 startups. We've had 500 plus startups that are funded. We've had 400 plus startups that have gone completely global. And we've had more than 45,000 people participate in our various programs. This is a quick snapshot to show all of you, the different governments that we work with and the kind of support that we've got from them. We're highly privileged that, different states and the center government trust in us to drive a lot of these programs. And we strongly believe that it is these partnerships that have really helped us grow the ecosystem. I'm going to get into more details on the whole open innovation program. So you all may ask me, what is this whole open innovation program and why is it important? The whole open innovation program, to very simply explain it, right? Every corporate or every company cannot create everything in-house. They have to look at what are some of the ideas that have got curated externally and how do we adapt to this technology solution or a product or an idea which can solve one of their problems internally, right? And also when a company tries to solve everything internally, it's going to take much longer, right? And with the evolution of technology, which changes almost every week, it's very difficult for companies to keep track of that and evolve at that speed. So they had to open up their minds a lot more and look at saying, how do I work with ideas that are outside? How do I work with startups? How do I look at building that culture, open innovation culture, and adapt ideas that are outside? So let me be very clear, this is not anything to do with mergers or acquisitions. This is how do I adapt an idea which is there, which is solving a problem that I want, which is using newer technology, and how do I look at bringing this on board to myself and helping solve the problem that I have, right? So what is it? How do we build this engagement, right? This program of ours is, of course, pan-India. It's very vertical focused. In fact, organizations do pay us a retainer fee because of the immense amount of work that is involved to build this, month on month, year on year. These engagements are very, very in-depth with organizations. It is where our teams understand what is their requirement, how are they going to, build and escalate solutions from startups, how do we look at taking the idea and co-creating it with a larger corporate, right? So what do the corporates bring to the table? So if I have to very simplify this, right? A corporate signs up with us, shares with us a set of, problem statements or problems that they're trying to solve. Our team looks at startups, not just startups that are curated by us or incubated by us, but startups across the country that we track and nurture. And then we pull out from that which is the best match. And then our teams connect it with the corporates and identify how those solutions can be, worked out. We also help corporates when they start their incubator and accelerator programs. Through the NIPP program, we also help them identify the right kind of startups to fit into their program, right? Our teams also look at hugely dedicated research, which helps these corporates and startups work closer and more easier together. The different kinds of models that we work on, and apart from this, what the NIPP also brings to the table is, so it's very important that corporates and large organizations don't work in isolation. And only bodies like NASSCOM, which are very neutral bodies, can bring them on the same platform to discuss and share ideas, right? It's very important that we build thought leadership ideas through this program and bring the industry unified together to help the whole startup ecosystem grow. So we do workshops, we do roundtables, we do industry-focused events, which are day-long events where we bring the industry, the startups, the government, all the stakeholders together to help grow this ecosystem. Just to give you a quick snapshot of our program, right, we have 35 corporate partners. We've connected 531 startups, to the corporates in just, about 2.5 years. Engaged with 1,200 plus unique startups. We've done 12 open innovation and CXO roundtables last year, right? And, these are very intense, highly curated programs. Right? It's not that you just bring a bunch of startups and you bring a bunch of corporates, right? You identify each and every problem statement, and then you identify startups who have those solutions which are across the country, and then you bring them on one platform to help build that. So we've also played the role over the last 6 years. This program is about 4 years old, and we started about 4 years ago, and this program is also about educating and driving the whole partnership and talking to corporates about what are the multiple ways in which they can engage with Indian startups, right? So there are different formats, there are different ways in which they can engage, right? So some companies would want to look at how can they invest in startups. Some of them would look at saying, how can we merge and look at some of these solutions and adapt part of this technology and then, mentor this company to further look at, growing them along with all the technology support and with tools and collaboration and teams that we can add to them to help grow the whole piece, right? So, like I said, and then it's very important for us to also kind of, understand, the difference between how incubator programs run and how accelerator programs run, right? Incubator programs are slightly more broad-based, right, and more horizontal, whereas accelerators are very, very deep dive, very vertical based. Most of the about 60% of the corporates that we've worked with are large MNCs with R&D centers here. And that's how the startup ecosystem has gotten a lot of support to structure and replicate and build processes, from international markets as well here. I'd like to take a pause here and see, before we get into very specific, we really want to get into more specific examples and talk to you about how some of these collaborations work. But I'd like to stop here and see if my colleague Rohit or Shivam, who do a lot of the ground work on this and are very hands-on with this, want to add something at this point of time. Shivam, Rohit, do you want to add something?
Sure, I'll just add one point that interestingly, there has been a lot of evolution in how the corporates are working with startups and how startups are also engaging with the corporates. Now, I think we've moved on from a space where startups had to bring out some innovative solutions and kind of pitch to the corporate and figure out if things can work, because the structure was lacking at some point of time for the corporates. But I think now what we've seen is a lot of corporates are actively aware on how they want to engage with the startup. They have a very clear, structured way. They have made amends or changes to their engagement models. They have specific contract formats which are easier for a startup founder to go through and finally work with the corporate. Because beyond the technology or beyond all the fancy stuff, the issue regarding signing a contract or engaging with different teams, be it the IT team or tech team, that also comes in a way. And I think we've seen a lot of improvement over the years. So that's something which is very positive for the startups now.
Yeah, thanks, Shivam. Rohit, do you want to add something?
Yeah. So from the startups point of view, I would like to say that these platforms are actually a very good opportunity for them to position their product or talk about their product to the right seller, to the right buyers. Because more often in a lot of engagements, I would say at least like 3-4 years ago, there used to be platforms where everyone is a seller, and we seldom had any right buyers to actually understand the solutions. So such open innovation has really made these corporates literate and given a very good launchpad for the startups to to speak about the solution to the right set of people in these corporates and not get lost in their whole hierarchy chain.
Rohit, I have a small question in the interest of the audience. क्या आप क्योंकि कुछ यूजर्स नया हैं, कुछ अर्ली स्टेज इनोवेटर्स हैं, कैन यू लिटिल बिट एक्सप्लेन व्हाट एग्जैक्टली यू मीन बाय ओपन इनोवेशन? किसको आप ओपन इनोवेशन कहते हो इस डोमेन में?
Yeah, Shivam, can you take that? I think
sure.
Yeah.
So let's go to the basics. Innovation would mean where you want to try something new, where you want to go above and beyond your normal process. Now, in a very normal sort of environment, the corporates have their research and development wings or other teams who are working on finding out what are the new ways to work or improve the processes or improve the sales. Open innovation, as the word suggests, means that they are open to external parties. So in this case, it will be that a corporate is open to working with a startup or an external entity where they would be open to either buy their solutions, either collaborate with them, figure out how they can work together in an open environment. So that would be a very simple way to understand what open innovation would mean. See, open innovation has been a very, it's an old concept. It's not very new. Open innovation, if you go back in the history, corporates have been finding ways to collaborate and work together. Open innovation doesn't just mean that a startup is working with a corporate. It means just that, two entities are open to working together. So that's been happening, for 100 years. But the interesting part is it was always difficult for a startup to work with a corporate due to various challenges. And that is new in India. We have seen that, over the last 5 years, that has grown a lot. I think currently it's a golden period for open innovation because one, as I said, a lot of corporates are actively collaborating with the startups. And good thing is that in India, the startups are really, are building solutions which are totally relevant to the current scenario. Even given the, scenario of the pandemic and COVID-19, the way startups have pivoted overall, and then corporates obviously, rather than going back, they are actively working with the startups currently. So that's given another new boost. So maybe you can say that, open innovation with the startups is fairly a newer concept, but then we are in a very good space right now.
Wonderful. If I look to this slide here, 60% of the corporates who are participating in your open innovation experiments, जो participate कर रहे हैं, they belongs to multinational companies, R&D centers from abroad and other companies. How is it? How responsive are Indian industries? How responsive are Indian companies? Is there an example, any company closely working with you?
Yeah, so see, it's a very interesting scenario that we have. We've seen that global companies have stepped up more when it comes to working with the startups, where you see a lot of investment, where you see that there's a structured way of working with the startup. But that doesn't mean that Indian companies have not worked with the startups at all. In fact, Indian banks, consider the top 5 banks in India, private sector banks. They were the ones which started working with startups 10 years ago. That was the first set of companies that were actively engaging with the startups at that point of time. So BFSI is one sector, maybe retail is one sector where Indian companies have worked with the startups a lot. And obviously there would be examples from each sector. So it's a good mix, but yes, when it comes to the set of global companies, we have seen that global companies have been engaging with the startups more. The reason is that a lot of startups also, which are in B2B segment, they build the solutions for global clients. So that can be one reason that a number is slightly higher for global corporates.
This is, one slide that I would like Shivam to, take us through in detail, because a lot of these things he and Rohit have worked on very specifically. But just to your previous point on, open innovation, I just like to add one thing, right? There has been issues, and we've also addressed that in terms of, when a large corporate looks at a solution like this from a startup, what happens to the IP of the product that the startup has, right? And it's a very important topic to address, right? Because and there are various methods in which this whole IP is looked at. Sometimes the IP stays with the startup. Sometimes there is a part that is co-created along with the corporate. So there's a joint IP on that specific part of it. So the different modules that have emerged over the years in the ecosystem, and so that it benefits and safeguards interest of all parties that are involved, right?
Sure. So now we are going a bit deeper in how corporates and startups have engaged so far. We have various examples and various structured ways that will probably give you an idea on what are the opportunities for the startups here. So we start with platform evangelization, starting with the first example, where Unity Technologies has created a center of excellence where they help the gaming startups to ideate, build, and test their products. Now the whole concept there is that they want the startups to ultimately use their own platform for building those games, for building those and developing those games and deploying them. So one of these is GC, where we see that a lot of startups have worked on their platform. Similarly, GE Healthcare's Edison platform that allows healthcare startups to develop and deploy their solutions. Again, the concept is same. They want the startups to use their platform ultimately. Then another way is license or vendor agreement. So basically, it's a very seller-buyer direct sort of a model where a corporate becomes the buyer, startup is the seller of the solution. So we have examples of Société Générale, which is a French bank, French international bank, and then Airbus with the startup Nivi, where Nivi provided a supply chain solution for them. Similarly, Stripe provided a smart KYC application for Société Générale. Now, another way where corporates and startups work together is joint go-to-market. So basically, the corporate and the startup becomes co-seller and go to the clients. So there we've seen likes of Wipro and Cisco who have successfully worked with startups and sold their solutions as a combo. So for example, Altizen's IoT suite has been a key component of Wipro's strategy when it comes to energy sector. Similarly, Zest IoT and Cisco closed an agreement with an Indian airport for smoothing their operations. So that's another model. And then co-innovation, where the startups and corporates collaborate to build a totally new solution, where you can take it as that the corporate has certain capabilities, a startup has certain capabilities, and they join together to create a totally new solution. So here we see Maersk, which is a shipping company. It leverages inspection technology, by a startup called Zasti, and they're using it for their container movement. Similarly, Bosch is working with Playment, wherein they are working on improving their computer vision models. So these are the four structured way of corporates working with the startup, and these are some success stories. Kritika, could you just go to the next slide? Yeah. So here's another interesting part where, you know, a lot of times corporates, after doing a pilot or after, you know, probably buying out solutions or co-innovating, they end up investing or acquiring the startup itself. Now, there can be various reasons. The major reason, which you can see in the slide, is 50% would be building tech capabilities. So it's a very basic debate that happens, that build versus buy, whether to build the technology in house or buy this technology. So startups provide this opportunity for the corporate to buy these tech capabilities which a startup has, so that the corporate doesn't have to work again.
Shibam,
same thing.
If I may intervene here,
sure.
This is a very interesting point that you are bringing onto the table. That big companies are looking to build tech capabilities through nibble or young startups. How exactly is it going? Are they not capable of doing it, or what's that chemistry that gives advantage to the young startups?
Sure. So there are two ways to look at it. One is that a large corporate has a lot of processes. It's a bit slower because considering the amount of funds that they have and the kind of operations that they're running, there would be a lot of approvals, a lot of channels that they have to go through to invest in something, and inherently it would take a bit more time. Compared to a group of 10 people that have to make a decision, and then 2 people who have to make a decision. Maybe 2 people will always make a decision faster. And the other reason is that no one really can own the technology, right? And if there's a new technology coming in, if there's some solution that can be built, it's not that only large players can do it. With the right technical capability, with the right knowledge, a new startup can come out with something totally brand new. So, for example, Amazon or Flipkart, that have come up, or Uber has come up. So Walmart, one would think that, why didn't Walmart come up with something like this, since they were the retail giants? But no, a new startup came in with that solution. So those are, particular reasons where startups are able to come out with some really, really good solutions. And then corporates have to make a decision whether they want to invest time and money into something which is already available in the market at a lesser rate. So that's the reason that corporates would be okay to invest in a startup.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Should we go on, or do you have any?
By the way, from my inquisitive little bit, any PSU or any Government of India enterprise has ever approached to the startups?
Yes, very interestingly, they have.
Which is the company?
So I would name the banks that are doing it. So SBI has been pretty active. In fact, a lot of their newer initiatives or their subsidiaries pretty much are working with a lot of startups. Kritika, Rohit, do you want to share any other examples?
Yes, the fuel and gas sector has been very active now. Companies like HPCL, BPCL have their own focused programs around engaging with startups, and
they also have funds, I think.
Yes, they do. So they do start with a work order, and then they figure out a way to invest in them while the scaling part happens.
So when they invest in these startups, they take equity, or it's a pure free money?
So there is no a set rule. It is pretty much case-to-case basis. When they invest, so I did engage with Numaligarh Refinery Limited once, which is a subsidiary of BPCL. So when they invest, they do take equity, and for the next round of funding, they do have the first right of refusal. So there is no set rule like that, but corporates also like to keep it a little flexible so that they can evaluate these things on case-to-case basis.
Wonderful.
We've seen a lot of traction in the automobile sector as well.
Wonderful.
sometimes names we will have to refrain from using very specific
absolutely,
names.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Shivam, please continue.
So, so continuing to the next one, product portfolio expansion. So this would be the case where the corporate finds that there's a new startup which is complementing within their portfolio. So for example, Reliance Retail, which obviously has is trying to gain momentum in the retail sector itself, especially when it comes to the in-shop experience. They have acquired a startup called Tesseract. Reason being that they want their AR technology so that it can be used for customers who can virtually just try on clothes and test out if they want to buy something. Similarly, we have a lot of examples where a corporate for which the customer engagement is very important, they would acquire a startup which is providing solutions in that. I would go beyond this and give another example of ICICI Bank, where they basically have acquired a startup which provides benefits administration. So all of you who would have an account in any of the banks, there's always those card points or benefit points that you see, and there's a whole page for that where you can buy from those points. And also that's a startup is managing or ICICI acquired a startup to manage that process for the bank. Similarly, so going forward, market expansion. So this is an area where a corporate would want to go into a totally new market, where we see that a lot of corporates would want to enter new markets, so as to say. I think beyond the slides also, there are a lot of examples where we see currently also Reliance acquiring many companies, then Google or Facebook acquiring many companies, which might not be in the same sector itself, but going into the new sectors, because in the end every corporate or every company wants to ensure that they are riding the right wave. There are cyclical movements in the sectors. There would be times where certain sectors are going far ahead. I'll give you a real-time example as well for that. So automotive sector had been facing a lot of issues, as you would be aware, and then owing to that, a lot of automotive companies are going into specifically the market where they can provide in-vehicle infotainment or automotive driver behavior solutions, which might be from the same sector, but totally something new from what they are doing. They're moving from manufacturing to other solutions, customer engagement solutions. Then we have acqui-hiring. It's a bit low on the list. It does not happen often, but idea here is that if the startup is at a early stage and they show promising technology, and the corporate is pretty much confident that they would want to retain the talent as well beyond the technology, that's when they acqui-hire. So the idea is that if a startup has a really good technology and then they have a really good team also, which corporate wants to retain, that's when they acqui-hire, so that they can ensure that the process runs smoothly and there are no issues in the future itself. So that's another way of corporates investing into the startups. Can we move on to the next one? Yeah, so these are the success stories where NIPP or our team has been significantly involved, and we've seen these success stories through the connects that we made. As Kritika had shared in the slide that she explained, that we try and understand what the corporate needs. We try and recommend the startups which are totally relevant for it, and then we make those connects. And the idea is that at the end of it, the solution should be deployed with the corporate, or corporate and startup should be able to work together. So I think I had given a little idea on Stride with Societe Generale. So Stride had was connected with Societe Generale some 3 years ago as part of their accelerator program. and they had this smart KYC application, which they did a pilot with, and finally it was deployed in certain segments of Society Generale. And the good thing is that, after 3 years, and that's the opportunity that startups need to see, that, after 3 years, Society Generale has been working with Stride on not just one, but some 7 or 8 use cases. It has been deployed with multiple departments, and that's one of the major customers for Stride. And because of this opportunity, Stride has been able to gain customers in Europe, in US, in Canada, and this became their first step towards global expansion. Going ahead with Commutech, so Commutech provides mobility solutions. It's working with Shell E4, wherein Shell E4 is an initiative by Shell which focuses on energy sector. So Commutech is one of the startups where they provided the solution. Then we move on to TechForce.ai and Barclays. So TechForce provides RPA solutions. That's one of the major enterprise solution that is pretty much required by every sector, every corporate right now, especially by financial sector, given the kind of regulations and compliances that they have to go through. So TechForce, worked with Barclays on the ML and RPA solutions. And then ultimately, they've been working with some 10 other corporates based on the experience that they gained with Barclays. And then the last one, again, as Hiranmaya had asked regarding Indian companies. So HDFC Bank has been working with vPhrase. vPhrase provides a solution which generates automated narrative based on the reports using AI. So basically, a lot of compliance and a lot of other functions require reports in a financial company or a bank. And that's where, vPhrase uses AI to automate those narrative-based reports, which simplify the reports for the users, be it the management or different teams which want to follow a process. So that's been a success story. And again, given this example, after getting this client, vPhrase was able to crack a lot of Indian banks after this. So I'll stop here. If we have more questions specifically on the examples or related to open innovation, I think we'll want to answer some questions first now.
So I will curate some of the questions that I have seen in the chat box by now. Jay is asking you, just a minute, he's asking, what are the other terms and conditions in open innovation framework? Particularly, how does the ownership is shared?
Sure. So that's a very interesting question. See, it totally depends on the kind of model that we're following. In case of, I'll take two examples. One is where a totally new product is being made, and one is where an existing product is just being used. So if a startup is just providing the existing solutions that they've made to a corporate, then they are the owner of the IP or the solution, and the corporate is just another client for them. In case there is any joint product development or joint go-to-market or co-creation where the corporate and the startup have built the solution together, then the ownership is shared. Terms and conditions specifically always depend on how those two parties want to engage. So there's no set rule. But yes, the idea is that, unless and until the corporate is not making any significant contribution in developing the product, the IP stays with the startup. Rohit, Kritika, if you want to add anything on this.
No, Shivam, you've been very clear about the 3-4 different ways in which they look at it.
Wonderful. One question to the entire team, maybe. Any NASSCOM success stories of connecting startups to Indian academia or R&D per se? Bhupesh Yagnik has this question for you.
Sure. So there are few examples where we've seen startups and academia working together. A lot of academic institutions. So there are two ways I would say. One is a lot of academic institutions are looking for startup solutions, be it for their admission processes or some of their functions where they need innovative solutions. So there have been success stories where we connected a startup with the academic institution where the startups has deployed their solution. So that's one way. Other is where we've seen a lot of startups coming out of academic institutions through their e-cells or through their student startup programs. That's another way where we've seen that a lot of startups come out of these institutions, and while they are at early stage, but then they end up if they end up registering and building their product, then we have seen a lot of success stories where we were able to connect them with the corporates, if not for the contract, but at least for mentorship. So that has been there. Kritika, would you like to share more on this?
Yeah. So one of the areas that while we see, like Shivam mentioned, while we see a lot of young startups coming out of the academic incubators and all of that, one thing that we try and do is see if any of these young entrepreneurs and young startups want to come and work out of our incubators, and we open up all our programs that we do for them to come into the market and learn more, right? In terms of but one area I would say that I think we can be we could take a lot more support from the whole academic side is, I think one area where startups really struggle and want help is in-depth research work, right? So if academic institutions can be a little more open in terms of having interns or having some part of their program where they can actually get students to work on some of these research and pass it on to the startups, I think it'll be like a huge benefit for the ecosystem, right? Because for a startup, they're small teams, they're working on multiple things, right? Customer acquisition is one of the most important things for them. So I think if we can deepen this engagement, I think we'll see a lot more success stories, in going forward.
And just to add to it, that is where we see a lot of metros doing a little better in the startup ecosystem, because just to add to what Kritika mentioned, there have been much more cases, of startups working on research projects from IIT Bombay or IIT Kharagpur. In Ahmedabad itself, Hiranmay, we know Strot, which was working on the solar thermal technologies based on a research which was done in IIT Bombay. Similarly, we have been, IIT Bombay has also been quite active in terms of promoting their research in the health tech domain. And there have been very good, and I think they have also partnered with Intel to help with the technology part of it. So these are happening in bits and pieces, but yeah, it needs to be a little more structured. And at our capacity, we are already working with some of this academia to support our startups with this practice.
Wonderful. Deepen Modi is asking you, is there any IoT startup lab in Mumbai under NASSCOM 10,000, or is it only available at Bangalore?
What is available? Sorry, I missed that.
Internet of Things.
IoT lab. Yeah, so Deepen, in Mumbai, we don't have an IoT lab. So if you're based in Mumbai, we do connect, we do work very closely with IIT Bombay and Mumbai University to help startups with the, lab facilities for IoT-based solutions. In case you are based in Ahmedabad or Gandhinagar, NASSCOM has an IoT lab based out of IIT Gandhinagar campus. So probably you can leverage that facility as well.
Wonderful. Jay is asking from Baroda, what would be your suggestion for academic incubators to build and strengthen them in open innovation models?
Okay, this is a very interesting, interesting question, and I don't think there's a very politically correct answer to this either. I think academic incubators have to collaborate more with organizations like us, right? Not just NASSCOM. There is a TIE, there's an Indian Angel Network, there's many others, which are industry bodies outside. Even CII does some work around this. FICCI does some work around this, right? So there has to be a little more collaborative mindset, right, to help. To help promote that. So when a startup comes into our incubator, it's the same thing when there is a startup that's created out of any of the academic incubator cells, right? It is our moral responsibility and our job to make sure that they're successful. And how can they be successful, right? One part is the whole mentoring piece in various forms, right? The other is how do you help them with their whole customer getting a customer, how do you get them exposure in the market, right? And that's an ownership that we have as well, right? And so for any success to be, parts of, mentorship, collaboration, right? Exposure, right? And is very critical, and a good mix of all this is very important to see success metrics.
Wonderful. I welcome Nagarjan sir, Commissioner Higher Education. He might have just finished a meeting into his car, but he's with us. So that shows his eagerness of learning and deploying open innovation. So Nagarjan sir, any words from you by now on open innovation? What do you think? How openness can promote innovation?
Yeah, in fact, I was listening one way. Now certain interesting questions came up, so I had to show my face. So I was traveling. And maybe before I reach the proper location, the session might get over. I did not want to miss a chance to discuss with Kritika and Rohit. So I just thought I would drop in. So one point about what Kritika just mentioned is that in the ecosystem, everyone brings a USP, unique selling proposition. Everyone should play on their strengths and try to cross leverage. Ultimately, the purpose is to make the startup succeed. So if we are all enablers and all the incubators should work together, and the one which is best positioned to support the startup should take the lead. We don't own the startup. Startups come to us for help. So this is sometimes it happens that a startup can go to one incubator for something. They can go to another accelerator or another incubator for something. So it depends on the startup's need rather than a fixed framework mindset to make a real difference. So that is how I see the role of incubators in an open innovation ecosystem.
Wonderful, sir. NASSCOM team has shared their story, how they are closely working with different incubators. So would you like to also throw some light about how Department of Higher Education and our startup policies are working so that we can co-create with them?
Yeah, absolutely. The student startup and innovation policy is actually working on the pre-incubation stage. So it is the role of the policy to develop the startups from idea to product and then feed it to incubators like NASSCOM's 10,000 startups. In fact, one thing I want to mention about NASSCOM is that they were the first people who came out with this 10,000 startups program. And that time, nobody could think that 10,000 was a figure. It was a very wild figure. That was how people thought about it. But over the years, we have seen that NASSCOM has been path-breaking, innovative pioneer in actually catalyzing the ecosystem. So now it is the role of SSIP in Gujarat to feed this funnel, and especially having Kritika and her team today who are focused on social innovation, which is a very, very important aspect of student startup and innovation policy. And Hiranmay, you also would support me that most of the startups in SSIP are from non-metros. We don't have much startups from Ahmedabad or Surat or Rajkot, but we have from smaller districts, Bharuch, Rajkot, Saurashtra region, Kutch, and even in Banaskantha and other places where the youth are getting a chance. So what this proves is that if you give the right knowledge, if you give the right environment, ideas are everywhere and our youth can succeed it. So now it is for us to take the ecosystem to each and every district, to take the ecosystem and connect everyone, provide everyone the opportunity to access the resources and network. And that is what we are doing with this webinar also. So it has been so far very, very effective. And we are getting good support from all the change makers and catalysts. Especially today, we have support from NASSCOM. So that makes it a very vibrant and special session today.
वंडरफुल, थैंक यू सर। एक इम्पोर्टेंट चीज इस डिस्कशन से निकल के आता है, कृतिका, रोहित, शिवम विल एग्री, जैसे आप लोगों ने लार्ज कॉर्पोरेशंस के साथ, कॉर्पोरेट्स के साथ स्टार्टअप्स को एंगेज करके एक ओपन इनोवेशन मॉडल बनाया। In terms of revenue and GDP contribution, these corporations might be leading, but in terms of job creation and local economy, our SME plays a critical role in this country like India. So we also need to design a mechanism, एक ऐसा माहौल बनाना होगा जिसमें स्मॉल एंड मीडियम एंटरप्राइजेस भी स्टार्टअप के साथ ओपन इनोवेशन मॉडल पे एंगेज हो सकें। So I think that is also one area, a greenfield area we all together should strive. Because if there is an innovative SME, small and medium enterprises who want to build something unique in this country, like Shivam mentioned, more than 50% of the corporates are looking to build upon the strength of startups, not to build upon their internal strength. So if a corporate like G or XYZ is thinking that they can build upon our startups, why not small and medium enterprises who actually creates maximum job and maximum contribution to the economy per se? So I think this is an interesting model that we are also working. So we are very soon setting up an open startup lab at iHub with support from Government of Gujarat and other industry associations, in which our primary goal is to test how we can openly engage with our entrepreneurs locally or others who are participating through virtual programs and innovative small and medium enterprises in the state of Gujarat, so that we can co-create value. So this will be a unique experiment, certainly for sure, for the whole nation. To start with, we started engaging with a couple of our product market fit startups with some progressive SMEs, and we have figured out that many successful use cases has come. There are two-way story to it. One, many often the SMEs are trying to solve a problem which are of national importance or regionally located. So the startup also understand that context. So in terms of understanding the context of the problem being solved, a local industry and the local startup fit well. So that's also we are trying to leverage. And the second thing is, when these local SMEs are closely working with startups, they're also becoming agile. Otherwise, they are like big elephants, you know. So you can't let a big elephant dance and innovate. But once they slowly start working with local startup communities, they're also imbibing that agility into their organizational structure. They're also imbibing that lean approach inside their framework. So these are certain kind of things that we have tried, and we are trying to set up a dedicated open startup lab at iHub. Is there any experience, Shivam, you have been working with any Indian SME per se?
I want to add a point here, which is very important from a whole MSME angle, right? So from our experience, we've seen that, the openness has been less, right? But it's better now, right? And two, we've also seen that for a lot of government projects, because of the procurement laws, right, especially for different kind of government projects, a lot of startups have to co-align and co-bid along with an MSME or an SME, right, to qualify for that for that project. So it's very important that our governments also take a look at this whole procurement policies, right, and the role that it's one of the key things that we are trying to drive. One of our leaders at NASSCOM in terms of the whole procurement policy, right, and changes in the procurement policy. Because every time a startup tries to work along with an SME to co-bid for a project, right, there are tons of issues related to that. Right. So I would, always, anywhere we speak, this is always, an important ask where, leaders like you, Hiranmai and Nagarajan sir and everybody look at, influencing the government as well in terms of procurement policies. Sorry, you were asking a question to Shivam and I interrupted.
No, this is a very interesting point. By the way, we took a very, very proactive step in terms of procurement policy of startups is concerned. Gujarat government has designed a very unique framework in which we are doing the procurement in three level. One is a procurement framework for helping startup to pilot, because many times these startups does not get an opportunity to even pilot in a constrained environment. So we are also bringing in resources to help them in pilot. Second thing is, once you pilot, we are going to give you a contract up to a certain level in which you need to demonstrate your capability. And the third will be, once you have done the pilot, then you have shown the capability, now you have an opportunity to go and have a bidding full-fledged, right? So initially, what we realized in the ecosystem was, in absence of these first two layers, in which you get an opportunity to pilot and then an opportunity to kind of demonstrate your technical capability, many entrepreneurs could not access to these markets. But now we are in process of doing this thing, and I think Kerala government is one of the government who have done very systematic work on that. And because you have touched this very emotional point for us, many often we take help of evangelists within the government to kind of play within the framework to help startups. And I must say a small example, when Nagarjan sir was the CEO of Smart City Surat, he designed the Surat Smart City incubation centers. And we decided to scout entrepreneurs who can have something to offer for smart cities. There might be IoT sensors, there might be waste management, there might be some smart transportations. And initially, because many startups came to us and they told that we are struggling to even access to government data. We are also struggling to kind of do pilot things. And therein, Nagarjan sir allowed those entrepreneurs to access those data sets, access those pilot possibilities. And these days, these startups have expanded their enterprises into multiple cities. So I think the intervention of helping the startups in the initial days of piloting and taking them to next stage is also very important. Nagarjan sir, would you like to highlight something on that? Because in that case also, government become a party to open innovation. You know, we are talking about open innovation or co-innovation with private sector or corporates, but now it's about open innovation within government.
Yeah, I think government is the biggest problem statements holder. You don't find this much enough problem statements in any other organization. But the thing is, they also offer a chance for the startups to actually test it out in a government sector, which is a slightly different, very choosy, picky customer. And so giving a chance is a very, very important thing. What has happened is, in the last 3-4 years, there were very few people like me who were thinking that yes, we should at least give them a pilot, at least on a no cost, no loss basis, or at least if nothing else, we can at least test the product, use it, and say give a letter of appreciation. Even that would help the startup in doing something, because we provide a very, very credible start to their product. But now I feel I have seen that very younger officers are very open to trying out new startups. Probably it may not be very remunerative in terms of turnover or in terms of order size, but in terms of credibility and in terms of acceptability of the product, it is going to support the startups in a very, very big way. And if I am a startup guy, I would not miss any even small chance, to test my product, to showcase my product, to find a customer in the government. Many times I feel that sometimes the startups are complaining that so much turnover criteria is there, or so much of issues are there, or documentation is recorded in a government. But that is the way government functions. So you cannot complain about your customer being a very lucrative and big customer. Rather, you should work with the customer and find out a way. But the formula, what I have seen that have worked for many startups, is that continuous engagement with the government. So it will take a long time. The sales cycle in government is very, very long. So don't look at government as a customer or a cash cow, but look at government as a potential to enter into a large market which has a high entry barrier. At least you have someone to talk to. Many of your competitors don't even have an access to a entry point within the government. So one should look at it from that angle. That said, government has given now a lot of relaxations in bidding EMD deposit amount, or the turnover criteria in GEM portal, I would say, which is the government e-market. Any startup or anybody could compete based on the pricing and the quality criteria. So I think that has brought down brought a very level playing field for the startups also. So I think things could never be positive. Don't complain, just work it out, find a way to crack the customer.
Wonderful. Shivam, could you just go back a couple of slides? We have a couple of questions where you have mentioned about the various percentage about what the corporates looked from the startups. Yes, this is. the slide in which different perception. Can you go next slide, maybe? No, that's not the case. Okay, this is the case. So this is very interesting data in per se.
Yeah.
So you are saying that your data says only 11% are active hiring. That means getting the entire team into the company.
Right.
And more around 50% are building tech capabilities. And if you merge tech capabilities with product portfolio expansion, it is nearly 75%. So
Right.
this gives a very strong message to the ecosystem. There is a perception, एक perception होता है generally, खास करके एकेडमिक माहौल में, कि उसको कहते हैं colloquial language में कि ये चुरा लेगा, right? So students teacher से छुपाता है, teacher student से छुपाता है, ये सब मिल के और किसी से छुपाते हैं, है ना? And then the things never go to anywhere else.
Right.
So these things is a very clear evidence that corporates are seriously looking to you, or industry are seriously looking to startups, either in terms of building their capability or increasing their product portfolio. Right. So nowhere they are looking to kill you. They are nowhere looking to kind of hijack you. They are nowhere looking to kind of overpower you using their large structures and large resources. But I think this is a very strong communication to the startups also, that if they have a strong proposition, because many times startups comes to iHub and Gujarat government and they have a little fear factor कि हम बड़ी कंपनियों के पास जाएंगे और नॉन डिस्क्लोजर एग्रीमेंट होगा, क्या प्रोसेसेस होगी, कैन वी एवर really fight them out if there is a bad way out of this entire dealing. So I think this also is a very clear evidence that you were saying कि लोग जो हैं अपने कैपेबिलिटी बढ़ाने के लिए, प्रोडक्ट पोर्टफोलियो बढ़ाने के लिए आ रहे हैं, so पॉजिटिव इंटेंशन के साथ इंडस्ट्री आ रहा है. क्या ख्याल है आपका?
No, right. You're totally correct on this one. And see, I'll just share one anecdote on this one also. See, we have seen a lot of cases where, as you said, founders come and say that, I'm not sure if they'll steal the idea, or, if the process is difficult, or NDA, if something turns bad, how do we deal with the corporate? So see, the idea is that corporates have a bigger risk. For them, they are trusting, a team of 10 people or 20 or 50 people, while the corporate has 50,000 employees, right? So they are taking the bigger risk already. So they will have, a lengthy process and NDA and, everything properly. But then the founders have to just stand up for, whatever they believe in. They have to be clear with the terms, and they should work with the corporate if the terms are acceptable. They shouldn't be compromising early. If they do, then obviously they have to follow those terms. Other part is that, see, even if you tell the idea, unless and until you're just, giving the code away, if you're just telling an idea to someone, or even presenting the whole idea or your solution, 99% of the time, it's not a unique idea. The use cases in the market, corporate also knows how to solve it. They are looking for the startup so that they don't have to build the solution. So there's no point for them to steal your idea and then start building it, because that was never the intention. Their intention is not to build and just figure out if they can buy the solution from you. So just, for the founders, you don't have to, fear that someone will steal your idea. Probably if you do a Google search, you'll find 10 other competitors with the same solution. So you just need to be very clear on the terms that you want to work with, and you should just stand up whenever required. You should say no when required. If your condition or your plan does not allow you to do a free POC, don't do a free POC. If there is a certain cost attached to it, just be clear. So they just need to, founders need to say no at the right time and yes at the right time. But there's no point fearing that someone can steal their idea.